I'm Pasindu Heva Patirana, and our research paper is about ImageNet classification with deep convolutional neural networks. And it is very much important to understand the research background. This paper was published in 2012, and it has mentioned that their approach was to find most appropriate uh, or the efficient machine learning technique which can be used to recognize the objects. And the thing they have done was a module was trained with set of large number of labeled images to predict with category the rest of the images should belong. And also they have mentioned that there were no such large databases, and uh, it was one of the major challenge that they have faced. Uh, they have used convolutional neural network or the CNN in order to identify or to categorize images. And this paper was published by a group of 3 members, namely Alex, Ilya, and Jeffrey. This is kind of a supervised learning, and they have used 2 graphical processing units or 2 GPUs uh, in order to train the data set. The advantage of using they have mentioned that using 2 GPUs, the advantage was to that the processing or the training time period can be minimized by using 2 GPUs. Uh, then this research became a revolutionary approach at the time was concerned, and they have used a regularization method called dropout in order to reduce overfitting while training data. Now a question comes into our mind: why they have used CNNs uh, to train data? Now, when we compare the CNN with the feed-forward neural networks, CNNs consume a less time period for uh, to do the predictions, and also less time for uh, training, training the images. And it has mentioned this CNN was the most suitable or the appropriate method in order to identifying these images. Something additional to this is now there are few, as you can see in this slide, there are few layers, and if we name this one as input and this is output layer, and these two are hidden layers, or we call them convolutional layers. So let's take this is first layer and this is second layer as example, and you can clearly see this one neuron is interconnected with all the neurons in the next layer. But the actual thing or the behind scene real situation happens in here is this one neuron is stimulating few neurons in the next layer, but not all the neurons in the next layer. And they have used a larger data set called ImageNet, which consists of 15 million labeled high resolution images. And they have mentioned these knob, CIFAR 10 and CIFAR 100. Those are kind of small data sets with low resolutions which cannot be used to train the data since the size is somewhat small, the database is, and that they have trained this network related to RGB values of the pixels. Now, as a generally, I can say we can conclude this approach into this picture. They have done actually. They have trained a model with label kind of a label data, and after the training was done, some kind of the input data are provided in order to do predictions, and this input data is categorized into relevant groups. Now, as an example, if this is a cat, then it is categorized under the group of animals, and if this is a car, then it is categorized or predict that should belongs to the group of vehicles. And also they have included how to improve their performance or the results by using powerful GPU, and by increasing the amount of label data to train the module also can increase the efficiency while training. Then I invite Thilina to do the rest of the presentation.
Can you see the slide? Can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So in this slide, you can see the architecture of the network. This architecture is called AlexNet architecture. So briefly, they describe this convolutional layer right here. You can see there is max pooling and dense layer at the end. They do generally increase the number of feature maps right here while decreasing the resolution with max pooling. The most interesting thing in here is you can see here are two pipelines in the architecture because this network is too large for one GPU, so they had to split it onto two GPUs with the occasional intercommunication. Right here you can see here, and there are intercommunication between two GPUs, and is also no intercommunication right here on this layer. So this is a very complicated network, and this paper was written in 2012, and there were no TensorFlow or Caffe on these days, and only Cuba was on this day. And so this was very complicated and huge code. Even using two GPU, this took 6 days to learn. So let us talk about the some features of our network. The first one is ReLU nonlinearity. The meaning of ReLU is rectified linear unit. This is an activation function used by these guys to achieve their purpose, not a thing that invented by them. So ReLU nonlinearity is very famous in nowadays, but in those days, people were used hyperbolic function and sigmoid function because these functions work as real human neuron. And this figure shows you what is the shape of this function, but values give you a function like this. And they said this is not a really work like actual neuron, but this is trained much faster than the hyperbolic and sigmoid function. And this figure shows you how fast it is. The dotted line indicates the hyperbolic tangent and the thick line shows prelude. It is faster than 6 times compared with hyperbolic tangent. And these days, they had GTX 580 GPU has only 3 GB of memory, which limits the maximum size of the network that can be trained on it. It turned out that 1.2 million training examples are enough to train networks which are too big to fit on the GPU. Therefore, they spread the network across 2 GPUs. The parallelization scheme that they employed essentially put half the kernel of each GPU with one additional trick. That is, the GPU communicate only in certain layers. For example, I have mentioned before, the kernel of layer 3 take input from all kernel map in layer 2, but kernel map in layer 4 take input only from those kernel maps in layer 3 which reside on the same GPU. So from this, they were able to reduce the top 1 and top 5 error rate by 1.7% and 1.2% respectively, as compared with net with half as many kernel in each convolutional layer trained by one GPU. The 2 GPU net takes slightly less time to train than the 1 GPU net. When we compare the error rate with the previous model, it can be seen that there's a huge amount of error rate reduction. This table shows you the 2010 ImageNet test result with the previous best one. And I would like to invite to the Dhanush to continue the rest of part of our presentation.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. My sorry. Can you show the presentation?
Yeah, it's not on full screen yet.
No share. No.
Yeah, no. It's okay.
Okay. So when we talk about the local response normalization, it was first introduced in the AlexNet architecture, where the activation function used was ReLU as opposed to the more common TANH and sigmoid at that time. Apart from the reason mentioned above, the reason for using LRN was to encourage the lateral inhibition. It is a concept in neurobiology that refers to the capacity of a neuron to reduce the activity of its neighbor in DNNS. The purpose of this lateral inhibition is to carry out local contrast enhancement so that locally maximum pixel value are used as excitation for the next layers. So talking about the what types of LRN using LRN is a non-trainable layer that square normalizes the pixel values in a future map within a local neighborhood. And there are two types of LRN based on the neighborhood define. You can see there is a interchannel LRN and the intrachannel LRN. So intrachannel LRN is this is originally what is the AlexNet paper used. The neighborhood define is across the channel. For each XY position, the normalization is carried out in the depth dimensions and is given by following formula. So where I indicates the output of filter I, and A and B is the pixel value of X5 position before and after normalization respectively. And N is the total number of channels The constant k, alpha, beta, and simple n are hyperparameters. Simple k is used to avoid any singularities, and alpha is used as a normalization constant, while beta is a constraining constant. The constant simple n is used to define the neighborhood length and I. So inter-channel LRN, the neighborhood is extended within the same channel only, as can be seen in the figure above. The formula is given by like this, and where W and H are the width and height of the future map. So the only difference between inter-channel and inter-channel LRN is the neighborhood for normalization. In intra-channel LRN, a 2D neighborhood is defined as opposed to the 1D neighborhood in interchannel around the pixel under the consideration. So next we talk about the overlapping pooling. Max pooling layer are usually used to downsample the width and height of the tensors, keeping the depth same. Overlapping max pool layers are similar to the max pool layers, except the adjacent windows over which the max is computed overlap each other. The authors used pooling windows of size 3 by 3, which stride of 2 between the adjacent windows. This overlapping nature of pooling helped reduce the top 1 error rate by 0.4% and the top 5 error rate by 0.3% respectively, when compared to the using non-overlapping pooling window of size 2 by 2 with the stride of 2 that would give same output dimensions. So there are many pooling techniques. They are as follows: mean pooling, where we take mean of the pixel value of the segment, and the max pooling, where we take the largest pixel value of the segment, and the average pooling, where we take the average value of the segment. They generally observe during the training that models within the overlapping pooling find it slightly more difficult to overfit. And reducing the overfitting, first we talking about have to understand what is the overfitting. The size of the neural network is its capacity to learn, but if you are not careful, it will try to memorize the example in the training data without understand the concept. As a result, neural network will work exceptionally well on the training data, but they fail to learn the real concept. It will fail to work well on new and unseen test data. This is called the overfitting. The author AlexNet reduced the overfitting using a couple of different methods. First one, most increasing the data and the dropout and augmentation. So data augmentation is showing a neural net different variation of the same image help the prevent the overfitting. We are forcing it to not memorize. Often it is possible to generate additional data from exciting data for free. Here are a few tricks used by the AlexNet team. Data augmentation by mirroring. If we have an image of cat in our training data, its mirror image is also the valid image of a cat. You can see the figure below, for example. So we can double the size of the training data set by simply flipping the image about the vertical axis. So another method, data augmentation by random crops. If we have an image of a cat uh, in addition cropping, the original image randomly will also lead to additional data that is just shifted version of the original data. The author of AlexNet extract the random crops of size 2, 2 to 7 by 2 to 7 from inside the 256 by 256 image boundary to used as the network's input. They increase the size of the data by a factor of 2048 using this method. Notice the four randomly cropped image look very similar, but they are not exactly the same. This teaches the neural network that minor shifting of pixel does not change the fact that the image is still that of a cat. Without data augmentation, the authors would not have been able to use such a large network because it would have suffered from sustainable overfitting. So I invite to Sachin to continue the presentation.
see my screen and hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Danushka. In dropout, a neuron is dropped from the network with a probability of 0.5%. When a neuron is dropped, it does not contribute to either forward or backward propagation. So every input goes through a different network architectures, as shown in the animation. As a result, the learned weight parameters are more robust and don't get overfitted easily. It definitely was a technique that was used a lot during like from AlexNet to basically like now. Also, according to this paper, they say combining the predictions of many different models is a very successful way to reduce test error. But it appear to be expensive for big neural networks that already take several days to train. However, a very efficient version of model combination that only cost about a factor of 2 during training. So this technique called dropout, then it explained again, it's setting to 0 the output of each hidden neuron with probability of 0.5. They use dropout in the first, second fully connected layers in the architecture. Without dropout, network exhibits substantial overfitting. Also, dropout roughly double the number of iterations required to converge. When talking about results, they use momentum to train this and they do some qualitative analysis. In ImageNet 2010, the network achieved top 1 and top 5 test error rate of 37.5% and 17%. Also in ImageNet 2009, top 1 and top 5 error rates are 67.4% and 14.9%. Since the 2012 test set labels are not publicly available at the time, they cannot report test error rates for all the models that they tried. Therefore, average the predictions of 5 similar CNN with gives an error rate of 16.4%, training one CNN with an extra 6 convolutional layers over the last pooling layer to classify the entire ImageNet 2011. And then fine-tuning it on 2012, it gives error rate 16.6%. As here, averaging the prediction of 2 CNN with force mentioned 5 CNNs give 15.3%. In the qualitative evaluation, they look at examples. In here, red bar is always shows the correct label, and the bars are basically with what their model says. Are the top 5 things
most of the new models are improvements over previous groundbreaking models, and some are in.
to look at. So, for examples here, you can see might as top 1, but they also black widow, cockroach, tick, and starfish. But the top labels are usually also very good labels. At the bottom left corner, you can see Gilly, and it assigned convertible, which you know by all means is correct. It's just not the class that the annotators assign to this particular image. As well as here, Dalmatian was the highest prediction of the network, where the label was actually cherry, and this is quite debatable. So you can see some mistakes in the network. Also, you can see that when the network doesn't do mistakes, not only top label is good, but a lot of top 5 labels are also adequate. Lastly, they look at a given training set images, which these figures show the training set images in left column. Also, they look at the last layer feature vector and the 5 nearest neighbors in Euclidean space of the entire training data set. As an example, you can see for elephants. The nearest neighbors are all other elephants in regards that they are in different poses, right? They don't always look at the same way. It is pretty cool to see that the network actually learns some invariances across the class and put images with the some labels into the same area in embedded space. When considering about discussion part, this shows that the large deep convolution neural network is capable of achieving record-breaking results on a high challenging data set using poorly supervised learning. Also, it is notable that network performance regrade if a single convolution layer is removed. As example, they say removing any of the middle layer result in a loss of about 2% of the top one performance. So the depth of the network is very important to achieve the result. Also in here, did not use any unsupervised pre-trained even through. Also, these results have improved as made network layer and train it longer, but it still have many order of magnitude to go in order to match the infotemporal pathway to the human vision system. Also like to use the large and deep convolution neural networks on video sequences. It's time to end of our presentation. Thank you for listening. Uh, that is time to give answers for questions that you already asked from us. I invite my friends to give the answers.
Now, first, thank you, Ravindu. Now, the first they have asked, what are the famous data sets or the competitions for image classification? In this presentation, they said that the best data set in ImageNet is NURB, uh, CIFAR 10, and CIFAR 100. They were mentioned, but and also these competitions uh, are ILSVRC 2010 and ILSVRC 2012 uh, can be can take. This ILSVRC means Large Scale Visual Recognition Challenge. And the second one, explain the words like training, validation, testing set. Uh, a testing set means, training set means uh, it is a set of pair of input patterns which correspond in desired output patterns. In here, ImageNet is the training set. There were over 1.2 million images under 22,000 categories. Each pair presents how the network is supposed to respond to a particular input. The network is trained to respond correctly to each input pattern from the training set. And validation set means validation uh, is a sample of data held back from uh, training your model that is used to give an estimate of model skill while turning models hyperparameters. And training set, it is a set that is used for assessment of the generalization error of the final chosen model. It is only used once a model is completely trained. It contains carefully sampled data that spans the various classes that the model would face when used in the real world. The rest of the questions.
Yeah,
will-
thank you. And the third question is what are the metrics used in image classification task? So they are the confusion matrix, classification accuracy, precision, recall, and the sensitivity matrix. And the fourth question is the what are the other image related tasks? And they are the image recognition, object detection, object segmentation, and the distance segmentation. Can you change the slide for the next?
So fifth question is compare this neural network to the newer image classification networks, and what are the difference you see between this and newer ones. So most of the new models are improvements over the previous groundbreaking models, and some are ensemble of the previous models. These new models do perform better than the previous models, but no significant or path-changing idea has been formed over the last couple of years. So comparing with the AlexNet and the VGNet, VGNet has a less top 5 error rate, and also VGNet has a very large number of parameters comparing with the AlexNet. And the sixth question is, what is the purpose of using the dropout layers in the convolution neural networks? Mostly dropout using to prevent the overfitting and reduce the overfitting. Sajinta?
Okay, the seventh question is, are there any advantages when directly applying a pooling layer after each convolution layer that is used in this paper rather than stacking multiple convolution layers? In here, when commonly a pooling layer is applied after a convolution layer for to reduce the spatial size of the input. So it is applied to independently to each depth slice of the input volumes. The volume depth is always preserved in pooling operations. Finally, they ask, pooling layers are used in CNN's architecture. What is the conditions to occur overlapping pooling? Uh, we think the pixel length and width should be equal in the training images. If you have any questions, you are feel free to ask. Thank you all again.